Cricket et al. It's a website, it's a podcast.
Pete, it's a way of life.
It's Gideon Haig over here.
And it's Biddle over here.
And welcome to Cricket et al., your independent cricket podcast, coming to you from Adelaide. And where are we at Adelaide Oval? Pete?
We're Adelaide Oval adjacent, aren't we?
We're in Creswell Garden, named after John Creswell, the Secretary of the South Australian Cricket Association. At the time, the SACA joined the Australian Board of Control. We're actually next to the statue of Sir Ross Smith. Significant because
he's an aviator, isn't he?
He was an aviator.
That's why there's aeroplanes, that's right.
With his brother Keith.
A biplane by the look of it.
Flew from the UK in 1919 and landed on the day that Keith Miller was born. Thus his name, Keith Ross Miller.
Right, there you go. And by the look of that relief, he must have stopped off in Asia on the way.
It was quite a journey.
Yeah, that would have been a serious
undertook. Yeah, two World War I aviators. Brave as brave could be. And of course, Keith himself became an aviator at the Second World War. We're also, this is the area into which the first six in Test cricket because it was hit out of the ground at Adelaide Oval in the Adelaide Test match of 1898 by Joe Darling. Wow. It's a left-hander. I think he must have been hitting this way. Yeah. That's in this direction. The pitch position doesn't move at a level. And in those days, to get a six, he had to hit it out of the ground.
Yeah, which he did. And literally out of the ground, because it would have bounced over. So there wouldn't have been a big stand in the way.
Not a giant football stadium. You can't really hit it out of the Adelaide Oval anymore. But in those days, that's what you had to do.
See you there.
Yes. We're still being mobbed.
So who is that? If we're going to see him.
Is he a subscriber?
Go and chase him and ask him if he's subscribed. Gideon. What have we been doing earlier in the day?
Well, what we were doing, we didn't do for very long because Australia has won this second Test match by 10 wickets. They were left 19 to get in the fourth innings. They knocked them off toot to sweet after bowling India out for 175 and have equalised the series, 1-1. Couldn't hope for a series more perfectly poised. And what a remarkable Test match coming on top of another remarkable Test match, both of which have been squeezed into the duration of one Test match. Really, it's taken no more than 450 overs for these two Test matches to play out, and one team has knocked the stuffing out of the other each time.
Yes, it's been quite the counterpunch, as you said last night, Gideon. But even though, there really wasn't going to be much play today, I'm the most optimistic in seeing this match going into the third session. 34,000 people showed up. Yeah, it's incredible. They have broken the attendance record for Australia-India Test matches, set in 2013-14 of this ground, in a game which stretched across
2013-14 because that was Australia and India.
14-15 was it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, but it had a 14 in it.
Yes.
Yes. If you're reading my copy, you know. But anyway, the significance of that was that went across 5 days.
Yeah. And it was a great Test match.
Yeah. So
with the grandstand finish. A much more memorable finish than this one, which was really rather muted.
Well, that one was the first match of the series, wasn't it? After Brisbane was cancelled and they had of course, it was all around the Philip Future's demise 10 years ago. There you go.
Yeah.
But it's kind of set a bar, really, hasn't it? I can't imagine the Ashes are going to have any more people coming on the first 2 days.
Unless it goes a bit longer.
Well, of course, if it goes more, but that's why I say the first 2 days, 50,000 plus people at the Adelaide Oval. Fantastic atmosphere, and some fantastic cricket.
Some fantastic cricket with a degree of local flavour, because of course we had 3 South Australians performing and making useful contributions in the case of Alex Carey and Nathan McSweeney, and man of the match winning contribution by Travis Head.
Yeah, there's not much of Adelaide left for Alex Carey and Nathan McSweeney. Travis Head has his big bite of it. I was thinking that when I was talking to McSweeney after the match. I was thinking, he hasn't really left you much, has he? Head has just lapped up everything in this town. He's the king of Adelaide, isn't he? He's the most beloved son of Adelaide, cricketing son. But there are two other South Australians. Well, McSweeney is kind of stopped. But Australia have won by 10 wickets. Does that prove that everyone was being a bit silly about their performance in Perth? Does that suggest that?
What it proves is that these are the days of knock 'em down, roll them out test matches where margins are huge and ascendancies are overwhelming, and they're not necessarily predicted, or do they follow in established patterns?
Is the reason for that, Gideon, that teams now don't try and minimise the damage? They adopt an almost sort of crash through or crash approach.
There's only a win to play for these days.
Yes.
I mean, it's been in one test draw this year.
Yes.
And that was a rain-ruined game in Trinidad, wasn't it? And even then, despite that, they got close to a result. So, the World Test Championship accents results. There's certainly no incentive to play negatively. You might as well go down swinging. Better to die on your feet than to live on your knees.
Yeah, and there does seem to be a belief that if you start swinging, you may get the other team. It's the counterpunch approach, isn't it? Which seems so, which the English are so fond of, and they've been doing so well over in New Zealand on the line. So
they've won a test match by 323 runs today, within an hour or two of this result, having previously knocked over New Zealand by 8 wickets. New Zealand having just come from thrashing India 3-0, and England having been absolutely marmalised by Pakistan after first beating them in the first test by an innings of 147 runs. And so, you'd be hard-pressed to find momentum in any of that at the moment. It's a momentum that fluctuates violently.
That Brook is something else, isn't he? I mean, we see Travis Head and his strike rates in Test cricket, but Brook is above that. Who's the other batter that's above that at the moment? One other. Root.
Yes.
Yeah. So there are the dominant batsmen score their runs fast in Test cricket at the moment. What do you think we'll see of India when they get to the Gabba? Do you think we'll see the same team turn out, or do you think that they need to make some adjustments?
Well, I probably do, don't they? I mean, we did find some chinks in their armour at this game. They acquitted themselves admirably in Perth, but I think they were probably asking quite a lot of Rana to bowl first game. That's an important mantle when your main striker, Jasprit Bumrah, is so valuable. You're going to need a guy to bowl the number of overs economically, and he was incapable of taking wickets or exercising any degree of control. And he picked up a pair. He picked up a pair in which he was dropped as well. So he was, not a memorable game.
He didn't look up to it, did he? Rana. So I doubt we'll see him. Do you think that KL will open the batting, or do you think that Rohit Sharma should return to the top of the order? There's a bit of talk among experts that perhaps Rohit needs to go back up there, set the tone. Yeah. He's the captain.
He is the captain, and it is difficult to captain a team from X. They were reluctant to tamper with a formula that served them so well in Perth. Anyway, whatever happens, they don't have long to make these decisions, because with these back-to-back test matches, you don't have long to regroup.
No.
I guess the other question is, is Nitish Kumar Reddy giving them enough with the ball? And they've actually, I commended them at Perth for lengthening their batting in theory, but they may not quite have the strength. They're not. He doesn't bring enough as a fourth bowler to really justify his place.
Well, not when your third bowler isn't carrying the load, especially not like that. But I'd be disappointed not to see him in the team. I mean, just for his batting, he's a terrific batter, isn't he? You talk about the short turnaround, and that is to some degree that weighs against him. The longer turnaround from the first test advantaged Australia on some levels. I think it's harder to take that momentum when you get a long break, and it enabled one Marnus Labuschagne to really iron out some of the wrinkles in his game. I listened with interest to an interview that Trent Copeland did with Marnus this morning in that, in Trent's little sort of cricket lab. I love that stuff that he does down there. That really brings something to cricket. And Marnus said, well, I just knew I had to change things. So I talked to a few people and he said, I sort of essentially set himself a program to make certain improvements by the end of every day, and do this, do that. They showed some interesting sort of pitch maps of where he was meeting the ball here compared to Perth, and it was further forward. It was showing more positivity and coming at the bowler, which he said he was happy about that. He said he wasn't working on so much getting forward, having momentum into the ball, but the meeting point showed that he was meeting the ball probably a metre further up the pitch or half a metre further up the pitch than he had been. The other thing, of course, that was interesting, was obvious to everybody, was his wagon wheel. His wagon wheel is great. Once the cover drive came in later in that innings. But that time that Marnus had, he used very wisely, because, as we've said probably before, he presented as a very different batter to the one that was in Perth. And look, I've got to hold my hand up. I did not think he was capable of making that much change in that short of a time.
Yeah. I mean, I referred yesterday to those 2 threes that he scored at the top of day 2, just working the ball waist high from about off stump through mid on. I thought they are 2 shots of a player who's achieving a great degree of affluence. And as he went on, he got more and more fluid. In fact, he probably got just a little bit fancy with those little dabs and cuts, and eventually it caught up with him. And it was 100 for the taking, which he didn't quite make, but he's that much closer to a breakthrough score at the end of this Test match.
And getting back to preparations and short turnarounds, it was interesting to see that even, as the Indian innings petered out today, Virat Kohli was out in the nets, working hard. Virat, this is probably his last time in Australia. It's one of his favourite places. You can tell from his demeanour on the field that he is determined. I mean, when have we ever seen Virat sort of in the comfortable chair, letting the cricket cruise along? But I reckon there's an added edge to Virat out there. He was sort of chipping McSweeney. We saw those celebrations of his when wickets were taken. We saw that in Perth as well. And to see him out there in the nets working on things so quickly, that impressed me. And in fact, by the time the presentations were being made, most of the Indian team was out the back, honing their game ahead of.
So naughty boy nets.
Naughty boy. Well, mate, what did Noel McLaughlin say? Winners had parties and losers had a net. Yeah.
They got a bit to work on, that's for sure.
So the tone of this match was set from the very first delivery by Mitchell Starc. An incredible delivery. Doesn't happen that often in Test match cricket. You said it's happened 33 times.
35,
35. Yeah. 3 of those times have been by Mitchell. But to do that, and to do that with to the guy who had really shot the lights out in the first match, that was an emphatic statement. And they didn't look back. I suppose the start came out of that first innings with 6 wickets, and box ticked. We're still looking at Pat Cummins thinking, well, you're working into it, but you're not quite there. Well, he got pretty good return here with a 5-wicket ball.
Click in the second inning.
Lots of positives for Australia, Gideon, and I do recall you rolling your eyes when I said there were positives to take out of Perth. But anyway, I wish I had a replay of that clip. What was I going to say?
Your piece again, Pete.
What was I going to say? I guess the one question that Australia have going into Brisbane is who bowl. Now, Josh Hazlewood has till tomorrow to prove his fitness, and tomorrow is Monday, isn't it?
Yeah.
He looks good. He's running sprints. He's bowling in the nets. He wants to play. Australia have the luxury of not playing him if there's the slightest doubt. Although you say that about fast bowlers, there's always doubts about fast bowlers. They have, aches and pains or issues all the time.
Well, I mean, interestingly, having bowled India out so quickly in this game, that's a very good way to manage your bowling loads, isn't it? by bowling the team out, the opposition out for 180, 175.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But I'm
too worried about overwork after a test match like that.
I guess I'm really talking about where Hazelwood is at. If he's at 8 out of 10, that's pretty good for a bowler. Most of them play at about 7.5 out of 10, don't they?
We should observe that Scott Boland made a very important and useful contribution in this game. And in fact, if you look at the matchups between the two teams, Scott Boland had a much, much better test match than Harshit Rana. As the third component in the pace attack, did his job much, much more effectively. The pressure did not go off when he was on. You got the feeling that India was pretty keen to take Boland on, but it didn't pay off.
He was outstanding. In that second innings, he got Jayaswal, he got the key wickets, didn't he? And Kohli up the top, bowled beautifully, and would have had a much better return had he not overstepped the mark and catches been held and etc. and so on. What more is there to say, really, except that it's really set up the series beautifully. Well, hang on, you've got something else to say.
Well, hang on, we're avoiding the elephant in the room, which is the Mohammed Siraj Travis Head incident, the imbroglio.
I've moved on.
The contretemps, you've already moved on. Well, unfortunately, I don't think the rest of Australia has moved on.
Right.
If the behaviour of the crowd was any indication. Talk us through that, Pete.
It's an interesting situation we have here. I think everyone's aware that Siraj and Travis Head had a little contretemps at the end of Travis's innings. He was given a send-off. He responded with some expletives. In the press conference later, he said, "I think I was misunderstood." I said, "Well bowled, mate." He had a go at me. I'm not proud of what I said, and I hold my hand up. I should be better than that to have responded in the way I did. The matter probably should have ended there, but Siraj has been interviewed on Star TV, which is the Indian broadcaster that's also here. Interviewed in Hindi. This is the important point. And in Hindi has said, well, that's a lie. It comes across as a very pointed comment, but I spoke to the person who did that translation. They say in Hindi, that phrase in Hindi isn't as pointed as it is when it's translated to English. Now, you have gone down this path in your piece on the Cricket et al. Website. I hope you're all reading that. I hope you're all subscribers. If you're not, I'll send Gideon around.
Gratuitous cross-promotion there, folks. And of course, I guess Head's remarks actually had to be translated into Hindi for Siraj to interpret them. So we're dealing with double translation. And so the scope for misinterpretation and exaggeration is considerable. I do hope people don't underestimate that. And I think, I don't like send-offs. I think they're cowardly. They're taking advantage of a momentary advantage. I don't think they play well. I think it's, neither player behaved edifyingly, but these things happen. It's particularly fatuous, I think, to give a send-off to someone who's taken you around the park for the previous 3 hours. So,
and look, we get the sense that, Siraj is clearly like a red-blooded fast bowler. He gets and he plays it on the edge, and he likes to get into batters' faces. Travis is a considerably more laid-back character, one assumes, or he presents as one. What I miss, and I think a lot of people have missed here, is that at the end of play, Damien Fleming tells me that the pairing had a hug. They had a hug. So they've hugged it out, Gideon.
Yeah, they
like we do when we argue. Yes. They've hugged it out and we just get on with it. I think they sort of took poses to it in the press conferences. And I'm really hoping that we do move on from this because I don't want this to infect the series.
It was interesting that the two teams formed their Indian files, as it were. The Indians coming off and the Australians coming off on as the Indians came off for their obligatory handshakes. It was interesting. Siraj was at the front of the group first, and he drifted back in the line until midway through. It's almost like he needed the security of his teammates around them. So I did watch pointedly as the two exchanged their gesture, and it was not token. It was quite meaningful. The relations between the two sides seemed to me to be pretty fine. I wouldn't want them to be they're certainly not at 2007-8 levels.
Are they better than the relationship between the Australian team and the Australian media at the moment? That's a topic for another day.
Where's Adam Zampa with his receipts file when you need it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I would hate it. I would hate for Siraj to become like the new Stuart Broad. I didn't think it was tasteful when Australian crowds went after Stuart Broad, but Stuart Broad is capable of handling it.
Yeah, he was. He enjoyed it. I think, in fact, he enjoyed it.
The booing of a Muslim auto rickshaw driver from Hyderabad, to me, seems unnecessary, and to have unflattering.
He's not a Muslim auto rickshaw driver from Delhi. He's a hot-blooded He's a hot-blooded fast bowler in a test match, as far as the crowd's concerned. But yeah, I don't like that sort of level of booing either.
I was interested that the BCCI allowed him to go ahead with that interview, though. That to me was interesting. I am surprised that the media management of the Indians that putting Siraj in a situation like that. And asking that question directly was perhaps provocative on the BCCI as well.
Well, maybe it was, and possibly strategic, because I think they sent Morne Morkel down to talk to the great unwashed. As much as I love Morne Morkel, he seems to be doing a lot of press conferences in this time. You know, it's Mug's Day.
We heard from Ryan Tiscani. Yes, I'm pretty sure I'll hear a bit of him this summer too.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, well, that's probably all we've got time for on Cricket et al. Been great to have you with us in Peswell Gardens. The kids have gone home.
Cricket.
The night is coming down. The lights are extinguished. Adelaide Oval is deserted, almost deserted as St George's Park in South Africa. Oh, actually, one thing that I went on at the end of the game, which I thought was fantastic, was that they let the crowd on at the end of the test match.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've seen that before. I wasn't here last year, Pete, but you don't seem to remember it happening last year. I've always wanted this in Australian test matches, the public to be allowed access to the Oval at the end of play. And it was fantastic to see how many people stayed behind at the end, how many kids were out there playing cricket, how many people were wandering around enjoying the privileged vantage point that normally is reserved for the players. I think it was a fantastic initiative. I've been pleased also at this test match to hear much less music being played. There's actually been the scope for old-fashioned conversation in the crowd.
Except for Saturday night when Sky fell and it was really mocking and they launched into Sweet Caroline.
That should be banned from all sporting events.
Yeah. We're not going to talk about GDS tonight, are we? Not tonight.
Not tonight. We're not going to talk about gated reverb, but you and I might talk about it later.
Over a beer or two?
Over a beer or two at the
all
exit.
Right, then.
Hope to see you there. It's all we've got time for on Cricket et al. It's goodbye from me.
And it's good night from him.